Welcome back to the Wealth Actually podcast, the show that features experts, entrepreneurs, and commentators that will give you the right knowledge, planning, and guidance so you can preserve your assets and enjoy your wealth. Learn more and subscribe today at wealthactually.com.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. It is neither investment, legal, nor tax advice. It does not represent the opinions of the employers of the host or guest.
I'm Frazer Rice. We're going to talk to Eddie Marshall today. He's the CEO of PRESAGE Global. We're going to talk about family offices and their security needs, building frameworks, and getting them ready in case trouble arrives. Welcome aboard, Eddie.
Hey, Frazer, how are you?
Great, thanks. You are now a member of the 2-episode club. We've got a few of them out there. One of my favorite ones was with you talking about there is no such thing as the family office, which I thought was a terrific bromide that I bring out every once in a while. It can be controversial depending on who you're talking to.
So some people like that and some people hate when I say that, but it's all good. But I mean, it speaks to the whole issues around family offices. And I think some of the things that we'll probably talk about today around security is if you're defining it so many different ways, we got to look at it more as a process than some actual thing that we can put our finger on.
So security, and whether it's family office or regular high net worth or people generally, is foremost in the headlines these days. We had the United Healthcare executive who got shot. We've got different scenarios of global conflict out there. And the theft around financial assets is everywhere. The urgency in the family office space, though, it seems like it's really taken on a new thing. What is your experience with it?
We could take a look at it from the perspective of, and start out with this is risk is really what we deem it. And how families and companies, family offices and investors are looking at risk, they can perceive it in a lot of different ways. But I think one of the things that are important for high net worth individuals or family offices is that some parts of their just organizational DNA create these engineered vulnerabilities. So what they are makes them more susceptible. And if you think of it just from the Willie Sutton effect, right? Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. It's kind of myopic because you have to look at the other factors. What does a family office typically have as characteristics? You tend to have a very lean operation. There tend to be sources of timeline agnostic capital. They have a lot of trusted relationships. They deal, their customer is the family, and they're pretty agile. So a lot of those factors come together and make them attractive for bad actors in a lot of different aspects. They could all also be politically outspoken, which attracts a different kind of attention to them. It's really a ability to understand the nature of family offices and what makes them attractive for them, because they have enterprise level wealth and oftentimes amateur or retail level security and risk management practices and processes in place.
So how do you get your arms around it? When I hear risk, I think, oh my gosh, you've got physical risk, you've got technological risk, you've got all sorts of other things. One of the frameworks you have is really these 10 domains of risk. And, we may not list all 10, but how do you get your arms around it when you're helping a client think through what their vulnerabilities are?
The 10 domains of risk that we have put together is kind of an organizational philosophy for PRESAGE Global. It really harkens to the fact that traditional security, traditional risk management is very siloed. Right? I've got my cybersecurity thing that I'm focused on, then I'm focusing on physical security. Unfortunately, risks and threats don't really respect your self-constructed silos. That old school mentality tends to lead to a lot of whack-a-mole behavior and reactive behavior to these types of risks that come out. So we came up with this framework, and the risks range from privacy, technological, reputational, legal, operational, financial, and so forth. And the reason we came up with that is that we're seeing the interconnected nature of risks in this space, whether it's for family offices, companies, or investors. There's a lot of interconnectivity between these risks, and they can cascade. So something that starts out as a privacy risk, exposed information, a bad tweet, an Instagram post that puts out some information around you can cascade into, reputational issues or financial fraud types of issues, or even legal fines, depending on kind of the situation that's there. And if you're not looking at risk across these different domains, how they interact, and really taking a deep dive to assess it, you don't look at the entire picture. And I think that combined with not just focusing on the shiny object of a technology-driven approach to solving risk in these issues is important as well. Oftentimes you'll see folks that work in the security space or people that have purchased something to support them on security or risk management. They'll say, you know what, we're doing great because we have X software, X tool, or whatever it might be. But they haven't even evaluated if they even need X tool that's out there, or even if X tool is properly configured. So you could be spending thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or millions of dollars if you're a company on these tools. But if they're not properly configured, then all that money is for nothing. And it becomes like security jewelry, right? We've got all this stuff that's in place. We have cameras that are of X brand and they're doing all these things. We have firewall that is of Y brand and it's doing all these things. But if you haven't properly configured it, or the people that are supporting you internally and externally, some of the externally creating the supply chain risk there, then it's all for naught. And it comes down, and it's similar in the work that you do. If you're not looking at somebody's entire trust and estate picture just beyond the documents that they're trying to draft, how do you figure things out? It has to be not just a black and white, here's a legal document for your trust and estate. It's part archaeology, part anthropology, part psychology, part, multiple other science disciplines and other disciplines that come into it to develop a document, to develop a plan, to have an execution that actually keeps the family safe.
Part of this seems like a real governance issue at the family level or at the family office level. When you see it done well, who owns this task, the security task at the family level? Because I could imagine generation one, the matriarch or patriarch, they want to deal with it, but I'm not sure they're the best ones to be driving it. What is a good practice there?
I think risk management and security, oftentimes, whether you're talking about a Fortune 100 company or a family office, is looked upon as a cost center. And I think that's an unfortunate aspect to it, instead of an enablement factor for you to go and do the things that you want, right? Good security, good risk management for a family should enable the quality and improve the quality of life for that family. And if you're constantly thinking of it, we have to spend X amount of dollars on our cybersecurity, or planning for our travel, or purchasing this, trying to reduce my privacy footprint by buying some security tool that does that and says that I'll get all of your information off the web. Newsflash, not possible. There's thousands of data brokers that are in this country. There's legislation that is going on in different states and at the national level to try to limit the aspects of the data broker stuff. But you know what? At the end of the day, that information is out there to nation states and to bad actors. And try telling a hostile foreign country or a hostile hacker, whether they're in Brooklyn or Belarus, to remove your private information from their data sources. It's not going to happen, right? So you have to, putting it in the perspective of governance is shifting the mindset away from it just being a cost center, and to how does this help all of the family office operations that are there and the family improve their quality of life by keeping them more secure. And that's a critical step to it. And then having a robust plan and really looking at the plan and testing it. And this may say simple, but if you don't have a plan and you're just trying to patch things together and you're not testing that plan, then you're spending a lot of time and not getting a lot of good results. If you're not thinking of security security governance and risk management governance through a maturity model, understanding what good looks like, where we are today, where we want to go into the future. Here's my gaps. Here's the things that, a good family office that's focused on this issue, or a good company that's focused on this issue looks like. Then I think you're missing out on a lot of things for these families to really keep them safe. You got to be able to fix those gaps, and somebody has to own that mandate within the family and not be looking at it as, okay, well, we didn't have any incidents this year as a metric. That's too simple of a metric, because you don't even know how can you predict which incidents occurred or could have occurred during that time frame. And that KPI for security and for risk management has to be important too, because if you're just trying to prove a negative, it's very challenging for anybody within the family. And unfortunately, what this results in is a very reactive approach to security. 80% of people come to a security firm or a risk management firm after something has happened, after attack, after a fraud, after insider threats of stealing of proprietary information, after a data leak. And the costs are enormous to do that kind of remediation and those kinds of fixes. Meanwhile, if you look at the front end of this issue and you look at ways on prevention, it's much cheaper. It's much less stressful for the family. And it really comes into that notion of, don't start with technology. Start thinking about people, then thinking about process, then thinking about technology. And that gives you a different mindset.
I was going to say, we've been alluding to people and processes internally. We'd been talking probably a lot about external threats, but then how do you manage the internal staff, the people the threats that are inside the family office, and sort of the review process? This probably makes a lot of sense in terms of understanding who has access to important information, things like NDAs, staff, what happens when someone leaves, do they take a key fob with them and all of a sudden, all the family secrets are out. How is that distinguished as part of the process compared to the external threats?
I'll take that as an ability to have a gentle plug for a survey that we're putting together and is currently launched. We've done a lot of surveys in the space for family offices, but this one in particular is focusing on estate management and kind of the security areas around estate management. You can check it out on our website. It's presageglobal.com/survey. We've been working with the team at Nines very heavily to develop this over the last 6 months, and launched it earlier this month. And I think that helps think of some of the issues around insider threat and insider risks for estate management. So that's the end of my plug for that survey. But going back to your question, and excellent to work with the group at Nines. If you guys haven't checked out Nines and their estate management technology, they're great partners on this survey and beyond. The insider threat issue is one of those that is challenging for families because a couple of different factors. Where is that insider threat risk coming from? Where is the staff risk coming from? Well, you can look at it from a pre-hire perspective. How are you evaluating this person before they come into your family office? Oftentimes, if you're working with a recruiter, they'll say, we've done a background check on this household staff member, the person that comes into the family's orbit, whether they're a housekeeper or they're a driver or they're a nanny or they're the CEO of the family office. Oftentimes, the background checks that we've seen for those individuals are the same level of effort and level of quality. And all of these people have different aspects to the of access to the family. You might spend more money on the family office CEO background check, but the nanny is in your home 40 hours a week and has access to your home 40 hours a week. And oftentimes people will fail to do the proper due diligence on that person because it's been passed on by a recruiting agency that says that, we've done the proper background check on this person that comes from there. So I think families are not aware of what good looks like on a background check. Just focusing on the digital checks that are out there is not sufficient. I'm sorry, it just isn't. That matters to people that have access to your family, to your home, to personal spaces, as well as your finances, your operations, and your strategy for your family office or your operating business. The amount of diligence that you do there is critical, and what good looks like is challenging for families to see. And then, the research tells us that 80% of family offices don't have an insider threat program. Meaning, once that person comes into the family office or to the company or some sort of orbit for the family, they don't do an additional periodic updates on that person's background. So obviously following employment laws for each state, which is critical, but there are ways that families can do and should consider around how you monitor the people that are there. Circumstances change. If you hired somebody and 5 years later, 10 years later, they're working in your family office and you haven't done any kind of background check on that person, lots of things change in people's circumstances that families should want to know about as part of their diligence because of the level of access and the level of private information that individual may have to the family. And again, you have to do all of this through counsel. You have to do all of this through employment law at the state level. As you're doing all of these things, you should be working with smart legal representatives to, one, make sure you're following those standards, making sure if you're doing evaluations of your security in general, hiring them to maintain privilege of the information that people are following for you. But again, I think people fail to do those things because they don't look at risk across the different domains of risk that are out there and just don't know that those things are best practices because they're really good at their silo. We are really good at this cyber tool. We're really good at this privacy tool. We're really good at this HR solution, but we're not thinking things broadly around insider threat and insider threat management. And you can do all of it without making the family office feel like the KGB. You really can.
A quick step to physical security. I mean, we've had a lot of violence around lately. We have geopolitical risk all over the place. And, the sort of the technological and the data breaches, et cetera, are one thing. It's quite another when people are targeting to hurt. How do you think about that?
I think you have to look at it from the lens that a lot of this and kind of the methodologies haven't changed that much since John Wilkes Booth and Abraham Lincoln. It's the same type of scenario and how they're targeting these foes in exposed places. I think that's an element that people need to be aware is that it's not just that there's some technological breakthrough that's happened in this space that causes physical threat to individuals, whether they're outspoken or they've fallen into an industry that's controversial for some people or for others. There was the very sad incident that occurred in New York with the insurance company CEO. But there was another incident that happened a couple of weeks later in the Chicago area that was very similar and didn't get a lot of press and didn't get a lot of headlines as part of it. So the physical security risk is a real one, but it's one that you have to have a good understanding about it, and you can't just apply a blanket solution. A blanket solution is wonderful for the bottom line of a security company saying, oh, well, you think you have physical security threats, then you need a bodyguard or you need a residential security team. That's the easy button. And that may not be the right case. And you have a lot of families that say, I don't want executive protection. I don't want to have a security driver. I don't want to have a properly trained 3-person team that's providing, doing advanced work, that's doing security driving, that's got all of the different aspects of a proper bodyguarding and executive protection, because I just don't want that intrusion in my life. So you have that factor playing into that. People do have physical security risks and they don't want that kind of protection. And, just like in the family, you have the ability to do that because it's your family and no one can force that upon you. So how do you protect yourself? How do you think about monitoring of Sometimes those threats, and this is not always the case, but sometimes those threats come in through social media, because somebody might be a very well-known person on social media, or a very well-known person, and people will present those threats from there. How do you keep up with those types of threats? What kinds of technology, what kinds of analysis, what kinds of process should you bring into those types of threats? How do you determine if something is credible, actionable, or just somebody shouting into the wind? Because unfortunately, these devices are some of our, our best friends for productivity and our worst friends for security. And it also allows these people to sit behind a keyboard and say some really obnoxious things. But how do you know what is obnoxious versus what's a credible threat? The specificity of that threat, and all these different factors, and identifying who that person may be, is very challenging. And then, you see it on stalking of family members or children, or cyber stalking. How do you get the attention of law enforcement when they're focused on a lot of different things? There's a finite amount of resources that exists in law enforcement, and especially around these types of issues. Yes, there are state level and federal level laws and statutes that you can use to protect yourself and your family from it. But if you're not organizing the information in a proper manner to give to law enforcement so they can take action on it, it's going to be a challenge. And these are all wonderful people that work in, federal, state, and local level law enforcement, but it's just a question of resources sometimes. And these families that are facing these terrible types of issues need to have a good understanding of what's there. But if physical security, again, people will hearken to, well, we've got great cybersecurity, but we haven't paid that much attention to our physical security. Well, that means you have no cybersecurity, because if I can walk into your office and I can get into your server closet and I can be proximate to it, then all of the fancy tools and the money that you've spent on cybersecurity and taking your information off the dark web, not possible. Just throwing it out there to somebody. And understanding that, then you have no cybersecurity. Or we've got cameras, we've got this fancy camera system we even have license plate readers for a car, for our neighborhood, for our office. Wonderful. Who's monitoring it? Who's monitoring at 2:00 in the morning? So is all of that physical security you're putting in there reactive? Or is it layered to make it you a less attractive target for bad actors that are out there, and having somebody looking at it? And unfortunately, again, families don't know how to put those areas into place in a systematic way, because a lot of the vendors in this space are very focused on just this. I'm going to get it done. We're going to sell the camera system and go from there. Or I'm going to sell this widget and go from there. Great for them. Terrible for the family, because if it's not properly installed, monitored, and you haven't done a physical security assessment of the home, during the day hours, during the night hours, looking for different changes of environment, then, you're trying to bail water out of a ship that has got a hole in it. And you don't know where the actual risks lie in that aspect. And you get into the notion of survivorship biases for families. Well, we haven't had an incident happen, so we're fine because nothing bad has happened before. And that's a challenge.
It reminds me a little bit of like 0 days since the last workplace incident. Like, it's awful. That's great right up until you have one, and then it's it's an embarrassing and counterproductive problem that you have to deal with. As we start to wind down here quickly,
Sure.
If we're advisors, lawyers, accountants, people around families, family offices, etc., who are aware that there's an issue, how do you interface with experts like yourself to get the conversation started?
I would say whatever group you're working with on security and risk management for family offices, you should really be looking at a group that is focused on diagnosis first versus prescription and remediation, and avoid the fear-based marketing that's out there, because frankly it's disgusting, and people still do it. So I think those are critical factors to it. Is really diagnosis first, understanding what the family is. We talked about it before. It's not just looking at a checklist. A checklist is a wonderful thing if you're trying that you have to do if you're a pilot before you fly the plane. But you have to go beyond that and actually have the experience and then understanding. It's the anthropology, it's the cultural awareness of the family, it's the understanding of what a family office is versus some abstract notion for many folks that are there, looking across different domains of risk as well, and seeing how these things go. Prescription before a diagnosis is a challenge. Are you looking, starting out from a vulnerability aspect and understanding what things are out there about the family? Because that's a critical step. And what's important to the family? Who do they need to protect? Maybe the principal says that I'm fine. I don't need security. I've got this handled. Okay, that's great. But you have children and a spouse. So how would you feel if something happened to them? And because if a bad actor doesn't care if it's you or your family, they're going to look at the principal as somebody who's a hard target because there's a lot of resources on there. But the soft target could be the kids or the nanny driving the kids to school, and all these different elements. So really thinking beyond just what's in front of your face around risk is critical as well, and being able to have that conversation with the family to understand what's there, going from understanding those vulnerabilities of what's there to understanding how those vulnerabilities occur, evaluating your technology, evaluating your physical risk and all these other risks that are there, how they're developed, why they develop for your family, looking at not looking at devices, looking at setups of everything, and then putting together a real plan to say, we're here. We have these aspects in our family office that are, not as good as they could be on our security front. And how do we actually build a plan and then execute to develop good security around that? One of the areas that families, and again, sorry for the small plug, but one of the areas that we have found that families like is a comprehensive look at security. Where we're acting as their family chief security officer and looking at this risk in a holistic, strategic way. So they're not looking at all these different disparate aspects of security and risk management. And it's not just choosing off of a menu. We're really providing you that aspect. There are very few families that have a full-time chief security officer in their family office. Smart people that do this well are very well compensated. So if a family is looking at resources and how much they're going to be putting towards this, it might not be something that they're thinking about until they get to a very, different level of what they're looking at. But being able to do this on a managed basis is something that families have found to be very effective, rather than just choosing off the gas station sushi menu of security solutions that look attractive, but might not be the right thing that you need. That might be great for the security company or the risk management company, but not necessarily making your life safer, improving the quality of life for your family, and then going on from there. Again, I go back to what we talked about at the beginning. Risk, as a family looks at it, is risk perception is what we deem it, and that plays a big factor into how families look at risk management. There might not be an awareness of what the risk is, or even if there is an awareness of what the risk is, there's not a desire to focus that heavily on it, apply resources to it. I don't like physical security. I don't like fill in the blank. But you have to at least know what those things are, so that you can plan around it and plan to protect the things that are the most important to you in your life.
Great stuff. How do people find Presage and reach out to you?
Sure. So we put a ton of stuff online on our website, lots of good white papers, lots of good frameworks that people can look at. Our website is www.presageglobal.com, PRESAGE global.com. The survey's on the website as well. LinkedIn, we put a bunch of content on our security matters. We have newsletters focused on the 10 domains of risk. We have a weekly newsletter that gives you strategic insights around the world across the different domains of risk. So if you could sign up for it there, email us, call us. We'd be happy to have a conversation as you're trying to go through this. And, Frazer, I really appreciate, our ability to have this conversation again, because I think it's an important one. And you're taking a very holistic view of how to support these families on a number of different issues. And I think this is an area and an issue that doesn't get the right kind of attention towards it. So I appreciate your time.
No, thank you for being on. It's a vital topic, and frankly, if you're looking for risks around a lot of different things around a family situation, and you don't include security as part of it, I don't think you're doing the full job. So, Ed, thanks for being on.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it. Have a great one.
Likewise.